Hi, I'm David Manti, and welcome to a new episode of the Today in Manufacturing podcast. With me this week are Jeff Reinke and Anna Wells. We each have more than 15 years of experience covering the manufacturing industry. Every week, we cover the 5 most popular stories on our websites and discuss the implications they have on the industry going forward. Before we get started, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. You can also help us out a lot by leaving the podcast a positive review on whatever platform you use. If you want to email the podcast, you can reach any of us at Jeff, David, or Anna at IN.com with email the podcast in the subject line. We're also live every Thursday. I forget when we're live now. It's just such a weird week. Subscribe to us on YouTube at IN Magazine so you can get a notification whenever we typically go live on Thursday. This week's a little bit different though, Anna, because we're going live Monday and Friday, just because our schedules are a bit jumbled.
Yeah, well, it was the 4th of July on Thursday, so hopefully everyone was doing other things.
True, hopefully, and I mean, you were having a good time, right?
Yeah.
You had a good 4th? Yeah.
Oh yeah, of course. I mean, it could rain less, just in general.
Yeah.
This summer, but it was a good 4th.
Oh yeah, no, that is the story of the 2024 summer.
Yeah.
It could have rained less.
Could have rained less.
Yeah. Jeff, how was your 4th of July?
It was great. Yeah, it was a little bit of a weird weather. We were on a lake that was super busy, a bunch of traffic, but it was also surprisingly there was a surprising amount of courteousness. Amongst everybody using
good. Okay.
boating, jet skiing, tubing, all that. So
Just a lot of getting cut off and then, sorry.
no, it was good because kind of one part of the lake was just everybody agreed nobody is coming here to do that. Everybody who just wants to like anchor and swim and fish or whatever can hang out there. And everybody even in that area like gave distance, and it was a lot of good give and take. It was
Nice.
Yeah.
surprising actually, but it was good.
No, that is nice because when you're on those lakes and then the skier or the jet ski comes flying through your group and you're like,
Yeah.
did you see me?
Yeah.
Or did you just luckily miss me? No, that is good. But I mean, hey, it's northern Wisconsin, right? Everyone's
Middle.
middle.
Middle
Okay.
of the state. What's the word I'm looking for? Mid-central. There we go.
All right.
Kind of the same thing, but that's the term.
Good
typically.
area. Yeah. All right. Well, before we jump into our first story this week, we have a word from our sponsor, Oracle NetSuite.
Thanks for joining us today as we discuss a very popular topic in the industrial sector and, well, pretty much any market where companies like to keep the lights on and make money. And that's how to improve and expand operations. I mean, this seems like a very familiar and obvious goal, but just like anything else, there's a right and a wrong way, or at least better ways of achieving these types of goals. Today, we're going to discuss 3 of the 7 recommended strategies. We'll finish up with the last 4 in part 2 of the series.
Hey, we're back. And just a reminder that this week's episode is once again brought to you by Oracle NetSuite. Listen now to a new podcast, How to Improve and Expand Your Business Operations. In this podcast, Jeff and I discuss a very popular topic in the industrial sector and, well, pretty much any market. Companies like to keep the lights on and make money. So download it now. Our first story this week, living skin looks to become the face of robotics. Researchers from the University of Tokyo have discovered a new way to bind engineered skin tissue to humanoid robots. This brings with it potential benefits to robotic platforms such as increased mobility, self-healing abilities, embedded sensing capabilities, and an increasingly lifelike appearance. The researchers were inspired by human skin ligaments and built in special perforations in a robot face, which then helped layer on skin and help it take hold. Their research could be useful in the cosmetics industry, for example, or even to help train plastic surgeons. This research was not just made to prove a point or give robots human faces, but could be used in other medical research. For example, like organ on a chip, which is used in drug development. Think of it as face on a chip to study skin aging, cosmetics, surgical procedures, like we said, plastic surgery, and even more. But back to the robots. If sensors can be embedded, maybe this could even give robots better environmental awareness and improved interactive capabilities. Anna, let's start with that photo they released with this thing and how it is a touch haunting.
Yeah, are we able to show that?
I say we bring that photo up.
Yeah. Can you show the GIF of the smile also? Can that be done? Okay. So This topic was very highly discussed in our office as well.
Oh, yes.
And that's because this is horrifying in every way. And I don't think they do themselves any favors with these like creepy eyes, the doll eyes.
Yeah. But for medical research, if it's for medical research, then instead of like just pulling the skin away from the face, like have them like practicing the plastic surgery on it or something.
Yeah. And I guess like if all medical research was sent out in a press release with photos, you probably would be like grossed out on the regular.
Oh, yeah. Jeff's aware of that.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
We used to have a publication, Surgical Products.
I enjoyed sending David emails and the subject would just be like, interesting photo. And then it would just be the photo. So when you opened it up,
oh man,
hernia mesh, lots of good stuff.
You can't unsee that. You can't unsee that. That's still my like fantasy football name, hernia mesh. But beyond that, like the photos, I mean, maybe they do that intentionally, right? Because I think this is a story that we maybe don't pay as much attention to. But when you see that photo, it makes sense as to why people are like, what's going on there?
Yeah, that's true. It definitely got a lot of attention. And I think it resulted in almost a philosophical discussion in our office about science and research and how for every amazing and much needed breakthrough you get from the scientific community, there's also like two on top of that are like, oh all right. Like, because if you... I don't know.
Should we
like, because I know you said that it is about medical research, and I grant that it of course, right? But it is also about making robots more realistic,
more human, yeah.
And if you look at the data behind that, it begs the question of whether this is an innovation that people really want or need. United Robotics issued a 2024 survey that revealed that about 60% of people don't desire a future where robots resemble people, saying that they're uncomfortable with humanoid robots with traits like limbs or a face.
Yeah.
So we're talking about like almost 2 out of 3 people who would prefer that robots actually be less lifelike than they are. So I don't know, like, if you take a page from the Jeff book, obviously, like the medical implications are exciting. The research that's being done with these cultured skin cells, I'm sure has huge implications with, grafts and transplants and things like that. That's probably where you need this the most. On the face of a humanoid robot, I don't think that that's something that people need or really want, to be honest.
No, that was one of the things I took anytime we do a humanoid robot is that people do prefer their robots robotic and their humans human.
Yeah.
It's no need to go blurring the lines, but it's like, I feel like anytime we do those stories, it's just like, man, we really don't have to and nobody wants it, but we're still gonna.
But here it is.
Jeff, again, this is something where it's like under the guise of, okay, I don't think we need human skin or human-ish skin on robots. But, when it comes to being able to help maybe grow more biological muscle tissue and test it on a robot, I don't know. Like, there are good things there.
No, I think Anna nailed it. In terms of where the applications are, I'm not a fan of the humanoid dynamic. I think we're way too infatuated with that. And yes, I would agree there in terms of they're placing a limit on how human-like we need the robots to be. I don't think we need to go down that road. But again, we're looking at plastic surgery. And let's remember, plastic surgery isn't just for aesthetics. It's also for burn victims. Yeah. It's also for those who are in car crashes, things like that. And we look at military and law enforcement and those environments and what they can create as well, and the injuries that can be inflicted. Being able to have an environment where you can train surgeons in a very lifelike dynamic. I mean, you're talking about using adhesives that replicate collagen and all of this other stuff. It's really impressive. I mean, this is definitely our thing that leads to the thing.
It is.
Story.
It is.
I mean, without a doubt, especially when when they're looking at, organ on a chip type dynamics. When they're talking about self-healing skin.
Yep.
And again, like Anna alluded to, getting away from the need for skin grafts and everything like that. Pretty exciting what it could be. Let's keep it off the robots.
Well, and to that point, what was one of the most exciting things, for me anyways, with 3D printing was the idea that you could take your own imaging from your doctor, 3D print the organ that was going to be worked on. And that's how they would train, right? For like extremely complicated surgeries, they would print out a copy of what they were working on you to make sure they got it right. So think about that, where if they could actually kind of print somebody's face or skin or whatever they were working on to get it right before, it's game time.
Yeah.
Like that would be incredible.
Absolutely.
So Professor Shoji Takeuchi nailed that one. Is a pioneer in the field of biohybrid robotics, where biology and mechanical engineering meet. So far, his lab, which is called the Biohybrid Systems Laboratory, has created mini robots that walk using biological muscle tissue, 3D printed lab-grown meat. I don't think they needed that one in this. I don't think, like in terms of the things that he's worked on, you didn't need to put the 3D printed lab-grown meat, but also engineered skin that can heal and do more. So it was actually while he was researching and developing this engineered skin that he felt the need to kind of take the idea of robotic skin further to improve its properties and capabilities. Definitely took it one step further. Hopefully it doesn't become edible.
Well,
I guess maybe in a pinch.
The part that I had read that was kind of alarming to think about, but so there's already been some development in robotic skin, but they said that the reason that this was so groundbreaking because of the way they were able to apply it with the fake ligaments and the perforated. It was able to fit the form of the face. So as you see the smile example, the reason that's important is because previous iterations of robotic skin would droop off the face, and they said it was sort of alarming to
understandably
view, like just very disturbing.
Yeah.
like this robot smiling and then just brrr, like a melted candle.
Like your robot gets like palsy.
So I can see why this is better than that. However, I still don't want it.
We'll think about it in search and rescue operations. We always think about how humanoid robots can kind of go into these situations where other people can't, where humans can't. And then to help you survive, the robot can tell you, now you must eat my face.
You've been saving that one for a while, haven't you?
I just thought of it.
Feels like you've been holding on to that one.
I didn't. I just, it was a bit of inspiration when I read the 3D printed lab grown meats, and I'm like, oh, think of the opportunity. But I'm interested to see which way it goes, and I'm really hoping it's going the way we want it to.
Get it out of here.
But I feel like it's going the other way. All right. Our next most popular story, Wilson doubles football factory footprint in Ohio. Since 1941, every point in the NFL has been scored with a football made by Wilson Sporting Goods. 2 weeks ago, Wilson unveiled a new and improved football factory right next to the old one in Ada, Ohio. Every NFL game uses a ball that is handcrafted through a 20-step process at Wilson's facilities in Ada. The previous facility was the oldest in the world, still making genuine leather game-ready footballs. Wilson's new football factory will double the previous plant's production capacity. The company broke ground on that $15 million, 80,000 square foot facility last May, and it's about twice the size of the old plant. The new plant makes about 2,200 balls every day, but the company hopes to increase production. Kevin Murphy, who is the Wilson VP and GM for team sports, says the company had simply outgrown its old space. He described the old factory as cramped and said Wilson couldn't even meet consumer demand in the old factory. According to Wilson, it hand makes 700,000 footballs a year in Ada. The company currently has 120 employees, but does hope to add 10 to 20 new jobs with this expansion. And Anna, did you know that they even named the game ball? The NFL game ball is called, every NFL game ball is called the Duke.
They all have the same name, the Duke.
Yeah. Like when in these game, when they give away the game ball after every game, I think it needs to be more like, who's bringing home the Duke?
Yeah, the Duke.
Mm-hmm.
This is a really interesting story, I think, for a lot of reasons. Obviously, we love to see when a manufacturer can expand and look towards increasing production capacity. It sounds like things are going very well for Wilson still after all this time in the industry. What I found really most interesting, the focal point here for me that I clung to in this article was about how they're doubling their factory size, they're doubling their production capacity, but they are only adding 15 to 20 jobs.
Yeah.
So, obviously for a long time, they've really hung their hat on the fact that their balls are handcrafted. Mm-hmm. They're hand stitched. I feel like we may see more automation taking place in this facility. I just don't see how you get around that. It's not, maybe they'll still be stitching by hand, but I'd be surprised if they're not using machinery for testing and packaging and whatever else you can do to kind of streamline.
Definitely.
It's not, you can't, I mean, it's not like they're doubling their space so they can give everyone just like a little bit more.
A little more elbow room.
Elbow room.
Yeah.
No, I think that we're seeing the reality of some automation probably taking place. And it's not like ripping jobs out from underneath us per se. It's more about streamlining how a company operates and how they might grow. And to be honest, right now there are thousands and thousands of vacancies in manufacturing. So, who would have guessed many years back when we looked at the future of automation? But this is really this is enabling this company to continue to grow. Like so much value is coming from that. And then I think another interesting follow-up question is, as long as we're getting philosophical today.
We're getting philosophical today?
We are.
I did not get that memo.
Started with robots.
Whoops.
We started with the robots. Okay. And now I'm going to give you kind of a tree falling in the forest question. But if a company expands but doesn't really add jobs, do we care? I think we do in this case, because I think a product like this that's so well aligned with American culture, to make it here, to make a big deal about that, to talk about your quality processes, it kind of sends a positive message of what can be done here on American soil. And I think that's a good thing. But it is interesting to talk about like a facility expansion being like, well, it's bigger now.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
they're not like really boosting their workforce.
True. And I do think that it might you're going to get away from how many jobs it's adding, but like the immediate economic impact in terms of building something like a $15 million facility, as well as like the economic realities of like, they just couldn't make enough footballs for what they were selling. And I mean, even if they're not adding that many jobs, like, that is going to stimulate the economy.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
But you're saying, right. Are people going to care if the release comes out and it's just like, we doubled our footprint?
If the alternative is this goes to Mexico, then of course, you know what I mean? Yeah. But like, otherwise, it's just sort of one of those things like, well, all right. I mean, I'm glad that they're still doing great and they're going to expand their production capacity and they're not cutting any jobs. They're not sending any jobs anywhere else.
Yeah.
But it is a different conversation than when somebody invests locally and then they're like, and we're going to 1,000 new jobs,
What do you think, Jeff? Will it be enough just adding capacity and the investment in the infrastructure? Or do you think the importance of these kind of announcements is tied to the amount of jobs that are created?
No, I think it's still very significant because you're looking at updating as much as you are anything else.
Yeah.
I think, when I read it, and I get what Rihanna's coming from in terms of it doesn't have that job growth that goes with it. You're just looking at essentially a bigger facility. But if I could have a 3-car garage, I'd still only want 2 cars, but I'd take the extra space to do what I needed to do. Say, if you could add 50 square feet to your bathroom, you wouldn't do it. I mean, so I think there's still a lot of value that comes with it. It shows an element of prosperity and reinforces that the company's doing well. I thought it was kind of interesting just when you look at football and where it's at and what is Wilson sort of looking forward to, or what do they think about in the future? Because on one hand, you can look at the popularity of football has never been greater. American football, you've got flag football leagues like for girls popping up now, becoming super popular. Amazon's paying anywhere between $60 and $100 million for games, all of that kind of stuff. And it is still the most popular sport amongst adults. But when you look at kids, like it's way behind soccer, basketball, and even baseball right now.
Yeah.
So in terms of future growth prospects, when you look at this much of a larger facility, I don't know if I would say it's a gamble, but is the demand going to be there for this many footballs going forward when you look at this next generation of kids? I mean, look at soccer. When we were growing up, did we watch soccer? Did we care about the World Cup? No, but that's transitioned now to the point where not only are people aware of it, they're spending real dollars on that sport to follow it, to understand what's going on. Hasn't hurt the NFL by any means, but it'll be interesting to see what kind of happens over time here.
Well, so I looked into that a little bit too, because that was part of the announcement that really stuck out to me. Wilson not only renewed their partnership with the NFL, once again being named the official football. So the Duke is here to stay for a while, but we're putting the Duke in a lot more.
Did you know that was my nickname in college?
No. Was it really? The Duke?
What?
That's fitting. Like, I mean, that had to be like a straight up. I mean, was it still in the military too? Were you still the Duke?
No, it was totally college friends.
Oh, man.
The Duke.
Like, was there like a John Wayne deal?
Actually, yeah.
Yeah.
Because like they were. This is back when we had to flip through the channels, kids.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
We didn't have streaming, and they were flipping through right before I walked in the room. They're like, "This is a John Wayne movie. Where's the Duke?"
Yeah.
And at that moment, I entered the room,
You-
and everybody said,
The
"There's
Duke.
the Duke."
The Dukes. So when you go back to your hometown, do you still have people be like, "What's up, Duke?"
Yeah. When I was on a fishing trip, yeah, like 2 or 3 guys. I'm still Duke.
Right, the Duke's here.
There you go.
That's fantastic. I can't share my high school nickname.
Was it Dave?
There's part. That was half of it. Well, so not only renewed their partnership with the NFL, with Jeff's namesake, the Duke, but so this factory is also making footballs for youth, high school, and college level sports. And Wilson also became the official football for the NFL's international flag football programs. Because you're right, Jeff. Like interest in tackle football is plummeting. You know, like parents just don't want to put their kids in full contact football. And kids, frankly, now that a lot of the science is out there, a lot of kids don't want to participate because it's like, hey, what's the health of my brain worth? 6 years under the sun.
They've got so many more options now, like lacrosse. Like that's a very appealing substitute potentially for football too.
Well, so flag football has been skyrocketing in interest. Like you said, like the number of organized leagues has increased so much that I didn't know this, but did you know that flag football became an Olympic sport for men and women in 2028?
Did not know that.
Yeah. And like,
All right.
that's going to be wild. I get it because, right, like there'll never be American football in the Olympics, but I could see flag football fitting.
Absolutely.
Now, through their organization, NFL Flag, more than 1,800 leagues have been organized nationwide, and there are nearly 700,000 players.
Wow.
Right now, 25% of those athletes are women. In last year over year, there was a 50% increase in women playing these sports. So I think that that's where the real potential in terms of like making footballs will continue to grow. And like, I used to think like flag football wasn't interesting. I mean, it was fun playing like 7-on-7 back in high school, but like some of these leagues kind of got it figured out how to make it entertaining, not as like odd as like arena football league just because it's so like high scoring. But like we've had it on in the office every once in a while where like you score a touchdown and then you jump in a giant foam pit. And I'm like, I don't know, but this works.
Definitely.
Jeff, is there a product more tied to American culture than the football? Like, could the Duke ever be made in Mexico?
Well,
Be like,
we know that it could be.
It could quietly be done, yes.
Yeah. I mean, as far as a football, I don't know if there's a more purely American, the first thought is like a baseball glove, but that's become a much more international sport as well.
Yeah.
So.
Is the Duke, like El Duce? Like, I think that is the
Pitcher. It was a pitcher for the Yankees, right? El Duque.
Oh, yeah. All right. Anyway, I'm
trying to think now what if there's anything more American. Like, where do they make Crocs?
Oh, man. Yeah, well, Crocs are an international sensation now. I
Are
think.
they?
I have no idea. No, the Croc maybe like an American specific food like the hot dog.
The hot dog.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know, the Natty Case hot dog. All right. If you can think of one, a more American product, please send it to me, david@ien.com with email the podcast with a more American product in the subject line.
Or you can send some medical photos. David liked those too.
Mm-hmm.
I'll look at them. I mean, if they're weird enough, I'm going to print them and put them up for everyone to see. Just like, hey, welcome to the new revamped office. I've put some stuff on the walls. All right, our next most popular story. SpaceX lands $843 million contract to take space station out of orbit. NASA recently handed SpaceX an $843 million contract to build the vehicle that will bring the International Space Station out of service in just a few years. SpaceX must now build a vehicle that can bring down the space station, though NASA is still going to oversee the mission. The contract is actually a vote of confidence in SpaceX, the Hawthorne, California-based rocket maker that Elon Musk founded back in 2002. The space station has been in the sky since 1998, and it needs to come down out of orbit by 2030. The station is operated by the U.S., Europe, Japan, Canada, and Russia, and all the countries have committed to operating the station until 2030, except for Russia, which is going to be out in 2028. Anna, what were your thoughts on SpaceX landing this contract and maybe what it's going to take? Because it seems like such a unique mission, right? Create a vehicle that can take this massive space station out of orbit and safely down to Earth.
Yeah, it is definitely a unique prospect. And I think Jeff will get into a little bit more about how SpaceX was able to earn this. I wanted to talk a little bit more about what's actually happening here. Mm-hmm. So from what I've read, they talk about this primary structure of the ISS and how long it lasts. And I guess it's affected by loading, basically, like how many dockings and undockings take place over time. Mm-hmm. And then also orbital thermal cycling. I don't know what that is.
Okay.
But
it's important.
Sounds important.
Yeah.
Sounds really important.
Apparently.
Orbital thermal cycling?
I'm assuming it just gets, what, do you think it gets really hot a bunch of times?
Hotting and cooling?
Hotting and cooling.
Hotting and cooling.
We are
yeah.
aerospace scholars.
Yes. Hotting and cooling.
So it can result in, so it's one of several Space Service environmental parameters that can affect the composite structural materials.
So temperature rise and fall, yeah. Basically. Okay,
Hotting
that
and
makes
cooling.
sense.
Yep.
Hotting and cooling.
That's the name of this paper.
As some might say. So anyway, as you mentioned, NASA's committed to utilizing and operating the space station through 2030. And then they're going to transition, they've said, to commercially owned and operated platforms in low Earth orbit. Seamlessly transition, they said.
Oh, yes.
Meaning privatizing space is getting very close. Though NASA has also said that they're open to extending the timeline if there is not private enterprise that's available to support the use requirement. So basically, NASA will become a paying customer of these commercial space stations and send their astronauts up to do research, et cetera. The idea is for NASA to save money doing this, but it really has to thread the needle because, so one of the agency's administrators, Ken Bowersox, said last fall that his biggest concern is if they get too far ahead of where the market is, and NASA has to carry the full cost of the platforms for longer, and then we transition too quickly. So basically, he said that could force NASA to move money from current ISS utilization to support these new stations. And his quote was, if we have a badly managed transition, we could find ourselves getting weak in those areas. So I think their concern is if the timing is not exactly right, they're going to be on the hook for kind of covering some of the costs of these new stations while they're still kind of getting this ISS out.
Okay.
So it will be an interesting handoff to observe, no doubt. The other part I think that will be interesting to observe is the actual decommissioning of the ISS because it is the largest structure that's ever been built in space by far. Mm-hmm. And according to NASA, this quote is kind of terrifying. Physics and engineering challenges exist when it comes to re-entry modeling. So they have expectations of what will happen, which includes kind of several stages of burnup before whatever is left being dumped into an uninhabited part of the ocean, which I know that just means humans, but also
yeah.
But I don't think they know exactly what's going to happen until they do it.
Yeah.
So it adds a level of required expertise, I think, on behalf of everyone that they don't really have.
Yeah. Yeah.
So again, like when 2030 hits or whenever they get this figured out with the replacement platforms, then watching them decommission this thing from afar is going to be very interesting.
It's going to be wild. And like, it makes me think of how, was it DARPA or NASA that had the competition in terms of getting space junk out of the sky? You know, like the one that wanted to shoot like giant nets out of harpoons. And I'm like, oh, it's just, you just build a super big net, blast it at the space station, and then drag it down. That easy, right? Mm-hmm. But talking about how big this thing is, so it's the same length of an American football field, including the end zones, 5 times as wide as a NHL hockey wink. the NHL likes to play on winks.
It's all the hotting and cooling that's going on.
Yeah, all the hotting and cooling. Total volume of 932 cubic meters. I mean, that is a massive structure to successfully bring out of the sky, Jeff. And, it's wild to think that NASA turns to SpaceX and says, you know what? You're the ones to do it. And for just a shade under $1 billion.
Well, it's going to be more when they figure in the launch fees, probably.
Yeah.
So do you think they ask, like on the questionnaires they're going through vendors, have you ever hit somebody with space junk from one of your rockets? And Musk is like, oh, well, yeah. We
Just a little bit.
Technically, it didn't hit anyone, but,
It
just
did fall in
sprayed.
a heavily populated area a couple times, but no one got hurt.
A few souvenirs.
It's a big deal.
Yeah.
No, interesting technology they're using. I mean, this is going to be is it going to pull or push, basically, the ISS? And this vehicle itself is supposed to burn up primarily as well.
Okay.
So it is kind of interesting to see how that all come together. They have some time, and they've actually given SpaceX some flexibility. Like if they need more funding, actually, or if they need to expand the timeline a little bit, they can. It just kind of shows how NASA is becoming much more dependent, and Anna alluded to it, all of these different private agencies in terms of going to space, getting people there, operating the space station, all that. According to Statista, SpaceX is now the number 2 vendor for NASA in terms of how much of their budget they get. Right now, they're getting just under 9% of their total budget.
Who's number 1? Is it like Lockheed?
Caltech, because they actually run their propulsion lab.
Oh, gotcha.
So they'll always be number 1.
Gotcha.
But and a lot of that does go to that university. Interestingly enough, you get into those like the safety briefings and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah.
And looking at those, NASA's budget. Okay.
Yeah.
And I am not an accounting mathematics guy. That's you.
Yeah.
But it was very interesting to look at how their budget breaks down and all the different things that they actually do support in terms of STEM programs and a lot of like geological studies being done here on Earth. It's kind of interesting. Anyway.
I mean, you should have told me before we had a week off. That could have been my reading.
So it was kind of cool to see that. But yeah, SpaceX becoming much closer to NASA here. And I just kind of wondered, this got me thinking about that whole spaceship cemetery or where they Nemo Point or whatever.
Yeah.
If this is what they're going to try to hit at some point, and I understand this is like 1,600 miles from any landmass or anything like that, but there's like 300 spacecraft, whatever, they've crashed down there already.
Yeah.
They're going to keep going to the same spot? Or, I mean, I understand they're trying to get it away from everything, and we do have these areas of the ocean, but I don't know. You keep sending it to the same place. That's the whole thing, right? That this vehicle is going to make sure it doesn't hit anybody.
Yeah. Can we like upcycle it into some sort of like coral reef?
I mean, it's deep. It's not as deep as the Mariana Trench, but I forget what it was. But it's like, I don't know, 3 miles down or something like that. So it is
it's
deep.
gone.
But
Yeah.
But we don't want to turn it into like another like New Jersey Atlantis.
Sounds like they do.
yeah. I mean, kind of it's like, we're just putting it there for now and figure it out.
We'll figure it out later.
Sounds like some weird sci-fi movie is just waiting to be written there.
Oh, it is.
We'll figure it out later.
Yeah. That's a problem for the next generation. Maybe not even them.
The tagline of civilization.
What I like is how the ISS is a blueprint for what's going to be happening going forward. And Anna, you raised a lot of really interesting points in terms of what privatized space is going to look like. And I just really hope that we do it slower rather than faster and try to get it right in terms of like what is sustainable, what is necessary, and what is made to be, well suited for that environment. Like,
Right.
I don't know. I get a little leery. Like I get as excited as I get for like, lunar colonization and Martian travel. I'm just like, well, let's make sure though, before let's not just go firing. What did Tesla throw out there? Like just shout out
a Roadster.
Shout out a Roadster
Yeah.
and some like Bowie records, just easy.
Well, and it's like an alarming, you use the word colonization, and I think that's appropriate here to think about like the people with the most money have the most access now to just be like, this is ours now. Like, what?
Yeah. No, we bought this space.
Yeah, we bought it. We paid for it. You didn't pay for it.
I mean, space real estate's going to be a thing, right? It's going to be like how there's only X amount of like, AM and FM channels, then they're all up for auction every once in a while. Like they're going to have a giant space auction and everyone's going to be able to buy their hunk.
Yeah.
Sad realities.
It is sad.
It also made me think of what's next. And today we ran a story about Aerojet Rocketdyne recently completing work on the 4 RS-25 engines that are going to be used in NASA's Space Launch System rocket that's going to be used in the Artemis 4 mission. And I thought that was cool because Artemis 4 is the ambitious plan to see astronauts live and work in Gateway. That's the first lunar space station in history. And, the mission's going to help prepare future human missions to Mars. It's also going to include multiple launches, spacecraft dockings, and lunar orbit. So while we see the past coming down in the next couple of years, I find it fascinating to see what the future holds. And again, make sure we get it right. Or mostly right?
Right.
Mostly right.
Take it slow.
Yeah, nice and easy. All right. Our next most popular story this week. Mitsubishi Robot solves Rubik's Cube in less than half a second. Last month, Mitsubishi Electric set a new Guinness World Record. Using high-speed, high-precision factory automation equipment and control technology, the team made the fastest robot to ever solve a Rubik's Cube. The robot solved the puzzle in less than a second. 0.305 seconds exactly, beating the previous record by 0.075 seconds, which Mitsubishi also owned the previous record of 0.38 seconds. The Tokui Fast Accurate Synchronized Motion Testing Robot, or the Toku Fastbot, as it's known to its friends and fans, which was named by its engineer, it can execute a 90-degree rotation in 9,000ths of a second. The team built the rotation mechanism using Mitsubishi Electric's compact, high-power, signal-responsive servo meters and a color recognition algorithm developed with proprietary technology. Anna, I really like the story, not just because of the cool factor and that we're able to do this without exploding this cube, or at least the one that they recorded and showed the world, but when it comes to getting kids interested in STEM, I think it's applications like this that really could be the first example they ever have.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think stuff like this generates so much public interest in STEM and robotics. It's like the type of stuff you see on display at IMTS, which is coming up in 2 months in Chicago. We will be there. I think IMTS specifically does a really good job of trying to bring young people into the fray with local groups of students allowed to come in and see the displays. And then obviously the exhibitors, Mitsubishi and their peers, they really bring it home with these types of displays. So likewise, I think what Mitsubishi is doing here in taking automation and showing its very dramatic capabilities is changing perceptions, creating awareness for kids. It wasn't that far back that automation was viewed as threatening and people were considering its widespread implementation as a bad thing, that it was going to lead to joblessness and this bleak future at the hands of robots. Like, we know that's not true at this point. And, we talked last week about this example of Ford's EV truck winning that Pikes Peak race, right? And how it was such a fun display of EV capabilities that was simultaneously responsible for some test and development that maybe wouldn't have taken place if they weren't trying to achieve this cool thing to gain the marketing, from that. So I think this is the same. It gives the public an idea of some of the capabilities of the spots. It generates some excitement. You can surely see some of the applicable tech here because we know that robots in the past have struggled with things like dexterity and grip and, trying to make that a robot work in a home care setting, but not like crush an elderly person's bones in their hands. Developers have been challenged by that for years, and they talked about the important thing about this was just seeing, as you said, how they were able to spin this so fast without destroying it. And so that some of that technology is being perfected here behind the scenes, which is exciting. Meanwhile, setting a world record at the same time, you can have some fun along the way, So it's just really fun to see it. No,
you can have some fun along the way. And Jeff, when a kid sees a Rubik's Cube solved in 0.3 of a second, I mean, I don't know. I just see every kid going like, well, what else could we do?
Yeah, I was confused because the only way I've solved a Rubik's Cube is by taking all the stickers off and then putting them back in where they're supposed to be. So I thought that's what it was going to be doing super fast.
Actually,
The fact that it did legit was even more impressive.
Yeah.
Very cool. Anna was kind of captivated by the mechanical elements. I was actually more interested in a lot of the machine learning and the AI part of it, because when you look at a lot of the very basic elements that you could take from this and where you could see this applied to the more complex, I think that's really interesting. When you look at that color algorithm that they discussed, I mean, that can be as simple as sorting parts, putting the red wire nuts and separating from the blue ones, or you could get into much more complicated quality control elements through those types of algorithms, which again could go everywhere from food, pharmaceuticals, regular parts, automotive, anything pretty much. So I think that was really interesting. The fact that it could recognize it that quickly and then make the mechanical movement in correlation with what it understood. Yeah, that I think is what's really interesting. We get so afraid and worried about everything where AI is going, whereas this form of machine learning, which is part of artificial intelligence, is really what's exciting to me. I think there's the ton of application here, potential.
It's like the beginning of artificial intelligence was like machine learning, right?
Yeah, and this is machine learning turned up to 11.
Yeah, well, and it's the fact that the cube is in there, it understands the configuration and how to solve it and solves it in 0.3 of a second. That is wild. That is wild. The video was recorded May 7th, 2024. A lot of people, like Reed said, they were just shocked, not by the speed, but again, that they were able to do it without, blowing it up and shattering the toy, which in the event that happened, Mitsubishi, release that one too. Because, I mean, just as excited as we can get by solving it in 0.3 of a second, if we could also see it blown up in like 0.2 of a second, just like, ooh, that one did not work. Like, I wonder how many they went through.
Could you guys solve a Rubik's Cube?
What? Is that a real question?
Yeah.
Yeah.
My sister-in-law has like the formula down. She can do it in like less than a minute.
What?
No, that's...
Never.
Yeah.
There's an actual... Yeah. I don't know, series of moves if you understand it.
Podcast friend John is actually the fastest I've ever seen solve a Rubik's Cube. He did it in front of my kids once, blew their minds. And I was just like, I know, right? Oh my goodness. I was just equally mind blown. But yeah, you're right. It's like, it reminds me of like an old like Nintendo code, right? Where it's like down twice, left, right, and then all of a sudden you get a
so you can just memorize it?
Yeah. There's like a formula to it.
Wow. Okay.
Because it's so crazy to watch him start, where he just like, he rolls the cube around, he like puts his fingers in strategic places, and then just like, boom, it's gone. And you're like, what happened?
Wow.
Yeah. And then he hands it to you and you're like, kind of sorcery.
Yeah. Get out of here.
Very cool. And I think that was why this, resonated with a lot of our readers, viewers, and listeners too, is just the like basic cool factor. Like, sometimes at the end of the day, manufacturing and engineering, just cool. All right. Our most popular story this week. No surprise here, but top story, Boeing buying Spirit for $4.7 billion. Boeing last week announced long-anticipated plans to acquire Spirit AeroSystems for $4.7 billion. By buying the key supplier, the plane maker says it will improve plane quality and safety amid increasing scrutiny by just about everybody on the planet. The purchase reverses a long-time Boeing strategy to outsource key work, an approach that has been criticized as the root cause of many delivery and operability troubles. In May, Spirit said it was laying off about 450 workers at its Wichita plant because of a production slowdown that was triggered by the panel blowout in an Alaska Airlines 737 MAX 9 about 1,600 feet above Oregon back in January. Well, at the time, Spirit's total workforce was just over 13,000 people. Spirit has removed its CEO back in October, replaced him with Patrick Shanahan, a former Boeing executive who also served in the Trump administration. Shanahan says, quote, bringing Spirit and Boeing together will enable greater integration of both companies' manufacturing and engineering capabilities, including safety and quality systems. Anna, could they have said anything else? No, it's just like, we did this, the ship has been righted, all good, don't worry, don't look over here anymore.
Yeah, this is what it is, and we fixed it.
Yep, we had a problem, this is the answer.
It is confusing to me why, as a strategic goal, you would spin off a bunch of key suppliers and then not hedge your bets a little bit on that.
Or maybe have a bit more increased scrutiny.
Yeah, it is interesting. I don't know. This whole deal is okay. So I think this deal is in the best interest of the public because it allows this key component production to come in-house in a time when Boeing is being highly scrutinized. And I think it's also extremely necessary for Boeing to ensure the solvency of this critical supplier. And at this moment, I almost, this is almost a foregone conclusion because there is not a chance that Boeing is able to withstand any further disruption by allowing something to happen to Spirit AeroSystems. They can't just let them descend into insolvency. That would be, I guess, an unforced error in this whack-a-mole situation that Boeing is in. Like, no way do they let them go down and just add to their pile of problems. So they kind of had to do this, right? Yeah. But what wasn't a foregone conclusion, I think, was the piece that pertained to Airbus. And we've talked about this in the past about what are they going to do about the business that Spirit AeroSystems provides to Airbus, their key competitor of Boeing, so that was clarified as well here as the two companies had announced an agreement when they announced the price. They announced an agreement with Airbus to negotiate the purchase of some Spirit assets involved with the programs that they are utilizing.
Yeah.
So that agreement is set to commence when Boeing's acquisition of Spirit is completed. I think that's good news for the aviation industry as a whole, that is being buttoned up already and not kicking the can down the road and waiting to see what happens there. Because to me, that would have been a challenging headache and maybe alarming as well to leave that up in the air, not knowing what would take place there because you kind of run out of options.
Yeah.
If you have issues with Airbus and you have issues with Boeing, I hope you like to drive, I guess. But
kind of a smaller version of Too Big to Fail.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Did either of you guys catch that purchase price?
4.7.
No.
Oh.
For Airbus grabbing the assets.
The $1 thing?
$1. Yes. Airbus is buying everything it needs from Spirit AeroSystems for $1. And also receiving $559 million in compensation.
I saw that.
That is a heck of a deal.
Good deal.
That is a heck of a deal.
I mean, is it though? If they have to now figure it out? I mean, it's a lot. That's a lot to just be like, well,
no, you're right.
Sorry, here's some cash.
I'm sure it's fairly turnkey. It's plug and play.
Just tuck this into your business.
They can easily tuck in the production of A350 fuselage sections from Kingston, North Carolina, and in France, and I'm sure they can easily move over the A22 or A220's wings and mid fuselage that they bought in Belfast. That's also in Morocco, and the A220 pylons that are made in Wichita, Kansas. Again, gonna be a breeze.
I think if we've learned anything from this entire thing with Boeing, it's that aerospace manufacturing is easy.
Super simple.
So this should be fine.
Jeff, what were your thoughts on both Boeing buying Spirit for $4.7 billion and Airbus getting its slice for $1?
Well, a couple things there. I mean, the purchase price is 4.7, but the deal is more like 8.3.
Yep.
Like when you figure in all of Spirit's debt.
Mm-hmm.
So it's an even bigger deal. One thing to kind of add on to the whole deal with Airbus is Airbus did have facilities sort of picked out for this work already in Malaysia, Scotland, and Northern Ireland. So they were ready. I mean, and Airbus is showing a track record of being pretty well prepared for all of this stuff and very forward thinking. The thing that caught me a little bit too is not only did Boeing sort of bring their own problem in-house, they also really expanded who they're working with. I mean, they are now a key supplier for Northrop Grumman on the B-21 bomber, the CH-53K heavy lift helicopter by Lockheed Martin, and the V-28 Valor rotorcraft but from Bell Textron.
Okay.
So they become even that much bigger part of the DoD sort of family, which...
How do we feel about that?
Yeah, if I'm the Department of Defense, I'm not feeling great. I mean, that's a red flag when you've got somebody who's got serious quality control issues, and now they're playing a big part, especially when you look at the B-21. Man, that has to be give you some pause there. some elements of concern, definitely. So I'm a little worried about how big of a role Boeing now has within the DoD. And then when you also look at, again, this was an acquisition that was made to help fix a problem. And now they've got all this other business that they also have to still maintain and run.
Yeah.
How much more can they handle? I mean, what's their bandwidth? What's their scope? How much can they bring in and still assess and fix while preserving everything else?
Yeah.
This is not an organization that's proven to do well at juggling a lot of different things. Yeah. So, yeah, some red flags are going up there. We hope for the best.
Yeah.
I mean, is this, but I think there's a lot of concern here, and you wonder how the Department of Defense is going to respond to this. Is this why, when you look at other contracts, they went with SpaceX?
Yeah.
Are they going to look more at getting away from some of these things that Boeing has a hand in the future? Is Lockheed or Bell Textron or anybody else going to have to distance themselves from Boeing or a Boeing subcontractor going forward to get more of this DoD business?
Yeah, this deal actually kind of put a lot of very important DoD eggs into one basket.
Yeah.
It's actually, I wonder if we would see future deals where Northrop, Lockheed, and Bell Textron maybe got their own $1 deals.
I mean, Boeing can't just let this stuff go, right? It needs to. I mean, it inherited a company with a lot of debt as well, so it needs to have, keep funds coming in. So I don't think they're going to be as gracious there. I think they had to do that, or you're going to have different scrutiny over monopolies and antitrust issues. So I think they had to do that with Airbus.
Yeah.
But with these other guys, I think they're going to try to cling to that business. But I think these other companies are going to need to figure it out so they don't hurt themselves in the short and long term.
I mean, back in January, it was around like 12,500 people after the cuts. Do you think Spirit's total workforce makes the transition?
No.
Yeah.
No way. And I think one of the things, too, that this did do for Boeing on a positive side, if you look at their stock price year over year, it's down like 28%, or year to date, I should say 28%. In the last week, it's green. Okay. And it's not way up, but when you've been down 28%, all of a sudden you're up 2%.
Yeah.
That feels better.
Yeah.
So some of those benefits are coming home already.
Yeah. All right. Well, before we jump into, in case you missed it, the story is maybe not as popular on our website, but still stand to make a big impact on the industry going forward. We have another word from our sponsor, Oracle NetSuite.
Thanks for joining us today as we discuss a very popular topic in the industrial sector and, well, pretty much any market where companies like to keep the lights on and make money. And that's how to improve and expand operations. I mean, this seems like a very familiar and obvious goal. Just like anything else, there's a right and a wrong way, or at least better ways of achieving these types of goals. Today, we're going to discuss 3 of the 7 recommended strategies. We'll finish up with the last 4 in part 2 of the series.
Hey, we're back, and in case you didn't know, this week's episode is brought to you by Oracle NetSuite. Listen now to a new podcast, How to Improve and Expand Your Business Operations. In this podcast, Jeff and I discuss that very popular topic, which pretty much any company in any market ever wants to know more about. So download it now. Learn more about how to improve and expand your business operations. All right, in case you missed it, stories maybe not as popular, but still stand to make a big impact on the industry going forward. Anna, I'll go to you first. What's your in case you missed it this week?
The story I selected was about Tesla and about how the company's sales fell for a second straight quarter despite price cuts. So basically, Tesla's global sales fell for the second straight quarter. They were offering some price cuts, some low interest financing, and they were down about 4.8% over the same period compared to last year. So the sales were still better than what analysts had expected. However, Tesla's still kind of battling out this weak demand. There's been a lot of talk about the EV market right now being soft. The article goes on to point out how Tesla has a set of unique problems, mainly its model lineup that doesn't look much different than it did years ago. It also mentioned that with Tesla's price cuts, used vehicle prices tumbled. We've talked about that before. So anyone wanting a Tesla can now get a better deal, a much better deal, probably buying a used one. And one analyst said that they don't see any big catalyst this year that would boost Tesla sales unless gas prices spike.
Okay.
I brought this story up because I think it brings some clarity to the narrative around the EV market. And there's been some other recent reports on this, that it's not really an industry in free fall. Rather, it's Tesla is in free fall, and they're bringing down the averages of everyone.
Okay.
So Green Cars just published a piece where it contends that almost every brand selling EVs experienced massive growth in the first quarter of 2024. Tesla sales, however, took a step back. So in March of 24, over 96,000 new EVs were registered across the country, which was a 4% rise compared to the same period last year. Now, they talk about slowing growth. That's because growth between 22 and 23 was over 50%.
Yeah.
But they say that electric cars continue to be delivered and they represent a higher share of new vehicle sales now. So more interesting, I think, was setting aside the one brand, Tesla, EV sales are actually growing at a more significant rate than it might seem like on paper. This is according to Green Cars. And they mentioned Ford. Ford sales were up year to date 60% EVs. Hyundai's 79%.
Wow.
So you wonder if automakers pulling back a bit has more to do with, this is me speculating, but more to do with just wanting to juice their books with some higher margin vehicles.
Okay.
The timing looks right versus like a true mandate from the marketplace here. Anyway, it's an interesting market for those and many other reasons, of course, being influential strategies, for these OEMs. So knowing this doesn't help us understand at all what to forecast for this market, I think, because every automaker is just kind of, they're just deciding what to do. And, some are investing more in building hybrids and some are full speed ahead and some are pulling back on their model portfolio. And it's interesting when you take the data and like pick it apart, how much Tesla is influencing this narrative. So.
Well, I mean, I think that's because one thing Tesla did really well out of the gate is made its brand synonymous with EVs. Like it's not Tesla in the EV market. Tesla is the EV market. And maybe divorcing the two might do everybody a little bit of good. I mean, except Tesla, of course.
Right, yeah.
Jeff, your thoughts on sales falling for the second straight quarter at Tesla. One thing that stood out to me is that it seems like whenever we have Tesla news, if it's really, really good or really, really bad, it's super popular, right? But if it's just like, maybe not so good for Tesla, then it's just like, okay. No one really.
We don't care.
Well, I mean, it is a polarizing company.
Yeah.
There's some that are still extremely passionate about it. They're drinking the Kool-Aid isn't the right term, but like they're definitely vested in the success of that company long term, and others are a little more casual about it. I think there's also some people that just want to see Elon Musk fall. I mean, let's be honest. So it can be a sort of the range of emotions to that type of stuff. I think Anna hit the nail on the head though in terms of over-emphasizing the role of Tesla and EVs. I think for a while we had to do that because they were driving the bus.
Yeah.
But now there is so much diversity within that product category. You need to go look beyond that. I think it was also interesting. Part of that article was sales were down, but it was actually a little bit better than what analysts thought they would perform.
Yeah.
So there is some of that too. I know you'd never want to see sales decrease, but if it was still meeting expectations, maybe there's a little bit of rhyme and reason to what Tesla is doing from a sales and production perspective. Maybe they figured out their scale a little bit. Maybe it's not going to be what Elon Musk wants it to be in selling the quantity of vehicles, but if they found their niche and they can be profitable putting out those types of vehicles to a consumer base that wants them very much, then they can be profitable and they can continue to play a key role.
Well, when it comes to profitable EV makers and maybe other players on the market, what's your in case you missed it this week, Jeff?
Yeah, I guess Anna and I were a little bit on the same brainwave here. I picked an article talking about Rivian shares soaring after a massive cash injection from VW. Now, we have to add a little bit of scale here. So shares from Rivian soared 40% before markets opened after VW vowed to invest $1 billion in the struggling EV maker immediately, and a potential of up to $5 billion as part of a development agreement here. Now, when we say 40%, 40%, we're talking about a stock that went from a little over $10 to 14 and change. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's not, it's not going to put you on the path to retirement, but it was a nice bump, obviously, for Rivian. I picked this story because, first of all, it identifies Volkswagen, I think, making a really smart move. They know how to make a car, But the places that they're falling down right now are on the electrical side
Yeah.
for an EV, as well as software development. And that's a big part of this infusion and why they're looking at potentially over time another $5 billion going into this partnership. And I think it also illustrates something that you would have thought would have been a part of a lot of these other startups on the EV side. Rivian is now realizing what is essentially, similar to what you'd see from a private equity coming in and investing in a company.
Yeah.
But Faraday didn't see that. We just talked about Fisker. They didn't see that. Nikola, a lot of these other EV startups never got this type of infusion. They were raising money from cash from going public, other types
Angel
of
investors,
angel investors, things like that. They didn't have somebody like VW step in. So I think it offers a boost of confidence for Rivian in what they're doing, and also gives them longer term projections, obviously, to keep building out. And this is the one whenever we looked at this, and it was largely because Amazon has also been involved with this company kind of from the start, but this is the one that could make it and really have an impact. Well, this is going to help them, especially when you get somebody like VW coming out and saying, you know what, they do these two things way better than us.
Yeah.
So I think this could be an interesting sort of blueprint, maybe for ongoing EV development.
No, I agree. Whenever we talk about struggling EV makers or EV makers that, unfortunately go bankrupt, some of the interest is in what's the IP going to go for, or is anyone going to pick it up? And sometimes we've seen it like just go along the wayside. Whereas when you see Rivian and a company like VW and a potential for $5 billion in terms of investment is, not just a vote of confidence, but like really, I don't want to say picking a winner, but like it seems like when it comes to the entire EV landscape, like either Rivian's got a lot of good backers.
Yeah, for sure. And VW needs to, as Jeff alluded to, make some headway with its electrics on the U.S. market. They have sold quite well in Europe. They have one EV on the market now in the U.S. that they've had out for a couple of years, and now their new van, the ID Buzz, is coming out this year. And I think that is expected to make a pretty big splash because there is no minivan on the market right now that is electric, all electric. And I think where Rivian is a great partner for them is Rivian, as you mentioned, does software very well. And, on the automotive side, I think we're going to see more of these tie-ups between companies as they look to kind of solve the puzzle of how to go to market between battery development, software, charging, all that stuff. And then secondly, Volkswagen is the only automaker that has not signed an agreement with Tesla on their charging network to like create. And they've talked about like, well, we're working on it. It's in the works. But Rivian also has a charging network. And Rivian recently announced that they would be putting more money into that and opening it up to other companies to work with them. And I think for Volkswagen, maybe that's a boon too, is just the infrastructure piece of that.
So you can charge your VW at an Amazon distribution facility near you?
Well, perhaps, yeah. And, I think lastly, they may be picking a winner because Rivian is already leading the pack of the startups, They have a unique look. People like how they look. They have really great range. They're very expensive, and that's the biggest barrier for them right now. But otherwise, I think they do have a long runway. So I'll be interested to see what happens here.
Yeah, the importance on VW licensing Rivian's IP, like you said, the software and the electrical architecture, that kind of stood out to me too. It wasn't tied to the battery. It was just how everything is going to connect to the battery and use the battery. For mine, in case you missed it this week, I picked a story on how the Biden administration is going to provide $504 million to support 12 tech hubs nationwide. And it wasn't just because one of them's in Wisconsin. So on Tuesday, the Biden administration announced $504 million in grants that's going to go to tech hubs in Ohio, Montana, Nevada, Florida, Wisconsin, among others. The money is going to be used to support the development of things like quantum computing, biomanufacturing, lithium batteries, computer chips, personal medicine, and other technologies. Why I picked this story was kind of because of the quote from Commerce Secretary Gina Raimondo. She said, quote, "The reality is there are smart people, great entrepreneurs, and leading edge research institutions all across the country. We're leaving so much potential on the table if we don't give them the resources to compete and win in the tech sectors that are going to define the 21st century global economy. And I just thought that was refreshing. I thought that, we talk about these sort of extremely large but few tech hubs in America. And I like the idea of opening that up. And it's not just because of stereotypes over, flyover country. But, there are a lot of smart people, a lot of great entrepreneurs. And it's good to see, these tech hubs like Heartland Bioworks in Indiana, IFAB Tech Hub in Illinois. The one in Wisconsin was Wisconsin BioHealth Tech Hub. Get a bit of a boost. Jeff, I don't know if you had a chance to see this story, but I mean, come on, it's hard to argue against like cash infusions into like, tech hubs, right?
No, I'm going to argue. No.
Oh, he's against it.
I am anti-tech hub.
I mean, if it's because money's going to Illinois, I understand. I support that argument.
No, the only thing, this is obviously great. And a lot of these different areas here, and you look at biomanufacturing especially, there's just a lot of different. The only thing that I think of a little bit, and I know there's two ways to look at this. You want to keep it broad to not limit anybody. But some of these things I would like to see a little bit more maybe focus or attention, really dial in on some of these things as opposed to keeping them as broad. But overall, obviously a great thing. The one thing that might be missing here a little bit is we always talk about infrastructure and civil engineering and things like that. Some of those technologies getting maybe a little bit more focus. But I'm never going to obviously complain about putting money into all of these other areas as well. This makes a lot of sense.
No, I thought you were going to maybe mention cyber as well, just in terms of,
that's where quantum comes in.
That's what I was going to say. Thought so too. Anna, your thoughts on the recent grants from the Biden administration?
Yeah, I agree with you. That quote was really, it was nice to see that because it is a great reminder that not all innovation takes place in Silicon Valley. We're not required to do it there for any particular reason. Yeah. And especially as you've seen, like some of the cost of living challenges that have prevented growth in some of those areas, people don't want to move there because there's no housing or it's too expensive or it's just, there's plenty of places that can do great things. And it's good to see this happen.
All right. Well, before we get out of here this week, let's move on to our final thoughts. Anna, what do you have for us for our final thought?
We were all on vacation this past week, which was amazing. And I threw my back out day 2 of vacation.
Yeah. How you doing? You feeling better?
No, I'm not.
Man, you were camping and you threw your back out. That sounds like a bad combo.
It was, but it's
Still not great.
It's not something that gets better while you're chasing a bunch of kids around and living out of a suitcase. So I just if you see me hobbling around, I really did have a relaxing vacation, kind of. I mean, as much as you do when you have kids, but but yeah, I need to take the week off from doing things now.
Yeah,
so, I it was the minute I turned 40, I slipped a disc or something like that second, that instantaneously. And then,
that was your body knowing you're 40, just beep.
I know. And so ever since then, just every couple of months, it will just scoot out of place.
Chiropractors are magicians.
I've
never advocate more strongly.
All right.
Well. I've had mixed results. Oh God. Obviously. But no, I mean, to that point, it was the same. It felt like a number of people in the office celebrated their week off by getting sick. And some people getting pretty sick.
Oh no.
And it was just how was your week off? Terrible. I was quarantined. I had COVID all week. But it's
that's one guy.
I know it's one guy. That's one, right? But people are coming back with pink eye. It's just what was everybody doing?
Wow.
What?
You need to talk off air here.
Heads up before. Is it either of you?
Oh no.
Is pink eye in the?
No, you're not the pink eye is not at the table.
Is pink eye airborne on the podcast?
Yeah, here, let me I'll just keep touching your computer. No, it's all fine. But I mean, that's just how it goes, right? I think it's because, isn't there a study where when you finally go on vacation and relax is when your immune system kind of lets its guard down?
I think that's true. Or it can be true. I remember my doctor telling me that it's easier to get a migraine when you're on vacation.
Yeah.
Because you just, I know, isn't that terrible?
Yeah. Your natural defense mechanisms aren't
rude.
Yeah.
Anyway, brain.
Well, when we celebrated some time off, I really enjoyed celebrating the 4th of July because it was the first time where, we've gone back and forth as a family as to whether or not the boys are old enough to do fireworks. Just because when you're talking about a 6-year-old and a 3-year-old, you're just like, are we willing to sacrifice at least the next day?
The whole day,
and maybe the next 2 days to see some fireworks. And it was incredible. It was so much fun. I read this article by Jay Zagorski with Boston University. He actually said the import of fireworks reached a peak in 2022. They reached $600 million in sales, and that's down. This year sales were down to $350 million. But let's just say that is not a result of the efforts of the DeForest community because they went all in. I've lived in larger towns for the better part of the last 25 years. And it always seems like fireworks are the first thing cut. Fireworks are cut out. You're looking for corporate sponsors. As you're approaching the 4th of July, they're just dancing okay, we got 2 sponsors, but unless we get 3 more, we're not really going to do it. It's just going to be sparklers and snakes for everybody. And DeForest was just nope, we're going all in. And the entire community embraced it. It was
we don't have trash pickup anymore, but
yeah,
we do have these fireworks.
We're putting a short hiatus on recycling services. But no, it was really great. And really got a chance to enjoy it and just hang out. And the kids were not, when you're off for a week, sleep schedules change. And I think this morning kind of hit us all a little bit harder, where it was just my kids just don't sleep in. They don't sleep in. And the fact that I had to wake up my 3-year-old at 7:30, I'm just I would never do this. I'm so sorry.
I'm so sorry.
Please forgive me. But no, it was nice to just get enough time to kind of relax.
Yeah.
Jeff, your final thought. Did you see any fireworks this year?
No, it was very wet. Where we were on the 4th of July, that night it was raining. I said how busy the lake was.
Yeah.
And once it, the 4th of July was probably the least busy day because it was raining so much.
Oh, man.
But my daughter still beat me twice at Monopoly. So
nice.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
We had a good time. Yeah. Special thanks to Point Brewery, the unofficial sponsor of my vacation. Definitely hooked into some good beverages there. Also want to thank the people at Menards. Because so this morning got off to a little bit of an uneven start.
Oh, no.
And I think everybody in Menards knew by the contents of my shopping cart what I was dealing with.
Oh, no.
Because if I'm going through the store, again, at 6 a.m. with a mop, some bleach, some Rid-X, you know what that is?
Oh, yeah. What?
Rid-X is stuff you put into your septic tank to help it to stop it from backing up.
Gotcha.
To make sure, but most of the times it's bought after the fact.
Yeah.
So yeah, my mom had a little bit of issue at her place with that. So that's where I spent my morning. But it was interesting going through Menards again because everybody's looking in the cart and I could just see the guys going, this guy's got a morning ahead of him here.
He's literally deep in it.
Yeah. Everybody was feeling a little bad. I had to ask the guy where the bleach was and he showed me, he looks at my cart, he says, there you go, man. Just kind of check out. I feel like everybody did kind of a slow clap or something as I was leaving the store. Just
go get him, Duke.
Sorry, man.
Yeah.
Go get him, Duke.
But everything worked out.
Everything is fixed.
Everything's
now?
good.
Okay.
No worries.
I got it. As a person who formerly owned a really old house with apparently they used to only make pipes in 1 foot sections, and they're just they used to make 1 foot sections, and so they're just filled with weeds. Man, that Roto-Rooter service or whatever you get, I mean, you can stretch it. You don't need to do it twice a year, but worth it.
Well, and this is never, the house is almost 60 years old. They never had this issue. It's hooked up to the city septic and all that kind of stuff. So it was a rare thing, and it wasn't, whatever image you may have, it was lesser than that.
Yeah.
Okay. So it wasn't horrible, but it was still not a fun way to spend the first morning back in the real world after vacation.
Dude,
so
I remember the first time that happened in the house, and I'm my only thought was something stuck. I need to plunge it. And so I'm sitting in the middle of it, plunging this waste. And I'm just
so you did it. You made it worse.
Well, I was just I not only made it worse, but I'm just covered in it. And then the plumber gets there and I'm just where is this coming from? Is this coming from the sewer? He's like, no, it's yours. It's all yours. And like, we had roommates at the time and they were showering. You know, it was like,
Oh, so you didn't stop using it?
no, we didn't. I thought if something was just like wrong with the city. So we're like still showering, the dishwasher's going, like the washer's going. And I'm just like, it won't stop. And it was a teachable moment. You were more prepared. I didn't even know what Rid-X was. Like what, you just put it in there and then.
Yeah, you can. And like, again, you should be putting it in to prevent that. But I'm going to go out on a limb and say 90% of that product is probably bought after the fact and then used. Again, this was not like a horrible thing. It was just, I just got a kick out of the people at Menards, the way they were looking at me, just going, oh man.
Yeah.
That guy's got
commiserating.
That guy's got a crappy morning coming up.
Indeed. So it's like Drano?
Sure. Yeah.
Ish. Okay. I mean, I'm going to do some more research. All right. Yeah. Well, did you wash up before you came in?
Yes. I thoroughly cleansed threw away shoes. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That's good. That's one of those situations where it's fine to just bail on the wardrobe.
Most of everything that was being used is in garbage. Yes.
Oh man. Well, very good. Well, it's good to be back. We'll be back on Friday with next week's episode. So check us out then. But before we get out of here, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. You can also help us out a lot by leaving the podcast a positive review on whatever platform you use. If you want to reach out to any of us, you can reach us at Jeff, David, or Anna at IN.com with email the podcast in the subject line. Subscribe to our daily newsletter. Make sure you get it delivered to your inbox first. And subscribe to us on YouTube at IN Magazine so you can join us when we go live early Friday morning or typically every Thursday around 2 p.m. For Jeff Franke and Anna Wells, I'm David Mantey. This is the Today in Manufacturing Podcast, and we'll see you next week.